What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bittensor today, TAO USD. Hit that like button, subscribe, and thank you all for being here. It's the second day of April. We've got about 8 hours and 40 minutes left in the day. Let's get into it, okay? We're on the 3-day time frame. I want to talk about this stuff right here. And in order to do that, I think that the most appropriate thing to do might first be to talk about the long-term stuff, okay? Now, prior behavior does not guarantee future performance, but we are going to reference the past to see if we can't decipher what's going on here, okay? And we'll get more in depth as time goes on. Notice how, and maybe we should use the daily time frame. Notice how overbought we've gotten, okay? Very, very overbought here, right? We've only been this overbought on the daily RSI a handful of times. Whenever we got overbought here, the very first time was right here. Was that the end of the move? No, we kept going. We kept going. We formed some bearish divergence here between this high and this high right here. Was that the end of the move? Did we pull back? No, we actually kept going. This RSI died off a little bit. You stayed in this overboughts and you lingered up in these strong areas, and with that, you didn't see this exuberant growth the whole way through, but you still trickled upwards, okay? You still trickled upwards, and then from your lowest point here, come on now, lowest point here to your highest point, you saw something on the lines of like a 72% growth. That was crazy. So small in comparison, but still a lot. 72% from a low to a high is a great range. You got overbought again here, and then you came down. Look at how much faster the RSI came down here versus here. Was that the end of your move? No, you kept going. And notice how when you topped off both of these times, you didn't do this. You didn't rip up here and then crash. You meandered. You distributed. And slowly then you came down, right? I shouldn't say slowly. I mean, from here, from a high to a low, you did drop pretty fast, 25% in like the course of a week. That's pretty fast. And then more as time went on. But still, you meandered, you distributed, and then you sold off. Whenever you got here and you found your top, was that the end of it? No, right? You were overbought here. That wasn't the end of it. Now we're in this secondary phase where the RSI is not at these same levels, but still you're in the overbought zone flirting around with this. You even have a little bit of bearish divergence. Does that sound familiar? And we're still climbing higher. When you got to this high, did you sell off like this? No, you didn't. You didn't sell off like this, did you? We didn't sell off here like that. We didn't sell off there like that. What we did was, again, we slowly climbed up and we kind of distributed. We had this distributive phase where we even saw a higher high here, kind of a one-off. That's weird. Don't count on stuff like that. I mean, maybe it happens, but just a distributive phase. And then once you actually found your high, it was like your third relative high here, and you sold off very quickly. Again, 27% there in like 5 days. We go over here, and you're getting overbought again. Was this the high? Now, this was a little more close to the high. You didn't have as much move to go compared to some of the other moves, but still from a low to a high here, you moved up 43%. You still saw higher prices later. It took you some time. And what you did was you didn't move up and then sell off. No, that's not what happened. You moved up and you distributed. You slowly distributed. And then you sold off. Even here, this wasn't a up and down maneuver. You moved up. You had one high. You had a couple highs. You distributed for a shorter amount of time. This was your secondary high, so it is shorter. And then you sold off. But it wasn't just like one day and then down. One day and then down like this, right? And this was one day up and then one day down, but this is a totally different environment with your RSI. It's a totally different trend in the price. We're referencing things that are similar to what we're experiencing now. I think that's important. Yes, there's bearish divergence. Yes, there is. There's a lower high here, a lower high. We've seen this happen before, and it still didn't play out immediately. And whenever we top off, when have we ever topped off? And it's not that it can't happen now. When have we ever topped off like this? It doesn't happen like that. No, typically we distribute, and then we sell off faster. Typically. Just because it's what happened in the past, just because it's what happened anytime we've seen readings like this before, exactly happen like this, doesn't mean it has to happen now. But that is the idea that I'm promoting. I would think, in other words, if we were to move lower, I think this move would have been more aggressive from the get-go. We're getting to 22% here, and this was on the 25th of March. It's been over a week now. Typically within this time, we've already dropped 25 to 30%. Typically. It's close, 22%, it's close, but again, it seems more meandering. And to the downside, typically we do some meandering to the upside and we distribute before we sell off, typically. We look at this on a weekly perspective again. We take our lower highs here. There's certainly room to move up. There's certainly room to move up above $400. We take our high here to our low here. The 786, 886 is a more than adequate area. $460 to $405, that's a suitable target area. We absolutely can go through that. And then we look through at our weekly time frame here from a high to a low. Where was your first stop? It was at the 886, 786 area. You even went a little bit above there. Okay? Whenever we look at this here, from a high to a low, where did you stop? You stopped, your high point was at the 786, 886. You stopped a little bit above the golden ratio, but still the 786, 886 was your major turnaround point. We take this high to low here. We're at the golden ratio. Does that mean that we can't consolidate for a little bit of time and then eventually move up? Sure, we could. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Because again, if you're making that comparison and saying that it's going to be months before we move up here, maybe. But on a daily time frame, we still are seeing here the same indications. Come on now, load. That we saw over here. Or no, I'm sorry. Was it where was it? Where am I? I think it was, yeah, over here when we were still climbing higher and we were distributing. Okay. Yeah. Because we stopped here and then we continued to move higher. This one was a little bit different, I will say, but I think the readings were a little bit weaker too, actually. Yeah, the readings were weaker. I'm sorry, I'm getting all confused here, guys. It's all back and forth. This reading here was not similar to what we're seeing here, as far as the readings go. I think that the stochastics are going to get a little bit more overbought. I think that the MACD is going to come up a little bit more. And then instead of looking at the long-term stuff, I want to look at some short-term stuff here. It is possible. I mean, anything's possible. We absolutely could stop here from a high to a low. It's an odd area to stop, just above the golden ratio. And throughout this range, we've actually seen it more common that we find resistance and support even at these 786, 886 areas. Doesn't mean that we have to go there now, but that is the stance that I'm taking. If we look at this on a daily time frame, maybe even a 4-hour time frame. This move here from a low to a high was basically one move. But I feel like the meat of it, you can see here, you were kind of still in this consolidation range, right? You're still here. You didn't really break out until here. And I think this really was your movement, personally. But whatever. We're going to measure low to high here. Just keep up with me. You take this move, this original move here, and notice how here, if we put it at the low there to the high, it's pretty close. It's pretty similar to what we've seen before. We take this low to high here, it's a pretty similar move. If we were, around the lows, we assume that we're around the lows here. Maybe we are, maybe we have a little bit lower to go. $423, does that sound familiar? That's right between our range from a high point here to a low point here of our 786 to our 886, the inevitable area that I expect us to go. We do have this bearish divergence on the daily time frame. It's there, but and I got distracted. What I meant to say also is we also have something else. We have lower lows in the RSI while providing higher lows in the price. That's hidden bullish divergence, which is also what we saw at any of these points where we were overbought before. We saw lower lows in the RSI with higher lows in the price. We continued to push higher. And then this bearish divergence here that was formed, this was minuscule. Then we actually formed a true kind of like double top bearish divergence, and that's whenever we sold off. I mean, this is pretty bad. This bearish divergence here is pretty bad. But with this hidden bullish divergence, I think that we will move up higher. I think we'll form more bearish divergence, another drive, which I feel like is a pretty bold call. I was expecting that we would move up, that we would bounce off the 60 and move up. I'm a bit disappointed in how today's going so far. I want to look at the short-term stuff. I told you that I wanted to focus on this price action, but first I think to do that we needed the longer-term stuff. Now that we've done that, you can see where my head's at. I do think that we're going to move up. Let's see if in the short term we can expect today to close green. If today can close green, what we're getting is a bounce off the 60. This, how it looks here, how it looks like it's coming below the 60, would go away. It would actually be pointed to the upside. We'd be bouncing off the 60. We get lower lows in the RSI with higher lows in the price, and we're still moving up. Even here, we still have lower lows in the RSI, higher lows in the price. That's hidden bullish divergence. We should see some type of a movement up. But I think it would be nice to see today close green, not just for the RSI's sake, but for the stochastics' sake, because the stochastics are also taking a bit of a spill. Where if today closes green, we'll actually bounce right off the 50, and I think that would look better. Just because it looks better doesn't mean that it has to do anything miraculous, but it would look better. And then also if we close today green, we'd be dying off on our bearish momentum here, potentially providing that we get a false cross. False crosses on the MACD do happen, and typically that does allow the price to grow a little bit higher. Okay. All that understanding now, we take the 1 hour time frame and then we zoom out from there. Okay. Stochastics look good. They actually do look good. If you guys hear that back and forth, that's just my daughter. I don't know what she's doing, man. The stochastics look good. They look like they want to go up. The RSI is getting oversold, and that's not necessarily good, but we're rejecting the oversold zone. Very volatile, kind of neutral. Not a whole lot to go off of here, but the price action itself is neutral. I want to look at this on the USDT chart since we're in the short-term stuff. TAO, not TAO B, TAO. Binance here. Okay. You can see that as we're moving down here, there's really not a whole lot of volume coming in. There was some volume. We had a little bit of pickup in volume when we were moving up. There's a little bit of volume here on the way down, but still not a whole lot of volume on the way down. And it's, if anything, it's depleting. We look at the 4 hour time frame here, and we have higher lows in the RSI, lower lows in the price. It could be bullish divergence. I'm not going to call it that, but it is nice to see. It is nice that we're not getting oversold. Stochastics definitely have bullish divergence. The MACD on the 4 hour time frame definitely has bullish divergence. We have bullish divergence on both of these. 30 minutes left in this 4 hour time frame. As long as we don't come down and close this candle red, we do have bullish divergence on 2 out of these 3 indicators, and even somewhat technically on the RSI. I heard an analyst who I respect, Eric Crown, years ago say that bullish divergence typically in the RSI only happens once you're interacting with the oversold areas. You know, maybe you get oversold and you bounce like this. That's bullish divergence, but typically stuff like this is not bullish divergence. It's kind of like a false reaction. And I've used that in my own analysis, and I find that to be true too. Don't count on these bullish divergence, but we don't have to count on that. We have stochastics bullish divergence. We have the MACD bullish divergence. We have a decrease in volume as we're going lower, right? It looks like you're breaking out here to the downside, but you're not because there's no volume. Makes me think that we are going to move up. It does make me think that we're going to move up. So the grand theory here is that we're either at the low point, which would be finding support at prior points of resistance, prior points of support. We're either at the low point here and then moving up, or we're in a make it or break it moment where we're about to send it down. And I just don't see that happening. It could happen. Just because I don't see it happening doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it's not my perspective. My perspective is that either this is the low or we're very, very near the low, and what we will see is some type of extension up. And again, $405 to $442. You guys remember where that $405 came from, right? That's also our 786 from this high to low here. The 786 of that fib lines up perfectly with this 1272 in the golden ratio zone. Now, I don't believe that we're going to work our way all the way up to 463 up here to the 886. Maybe we do. We've seen it before. We can even go above there. But likely we're going to stop somewhere in this range, what I call the primary target zone, the primary extension zone, which is our 1272 to the 1618. That's what I think is going to happen. Back at the 4 hour time frame. Stochastics are coming out of the oversold zone. RSI bouncing off the 40. Bullish divergence on stochastics and MACD. I'm getting giddy here, man. I think we're about to see some upside. Some more upside. Daily time frame. Hidden bullish divergence on the stochastics. If today can come up and close green, we've got 8 hours left. The 4 hour time frame, the 1 hour time frame looks good. So if we can behave for the next 8 hours, and I think we will, we can close this green. That doesn't necessarily mean that today, tomorrow, the next day we're off to the races. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. But it would at least set up a base where maybe over the coming days we could see some higher prices. There was one more thing that I wanted to go over, and I meant to go over this whenever we were doing our long-term analysis, but I forgot. I just forgot, okay? we're going to do it. We have to use the TAO B chart because that's got the all-time history. TAO B. Oh, and I'll hit you guys with something bad at the end here, okay? I'll hit you guys with something bad at the end that I do expect to happen inevitably. It was a call that I made quite some time ago. But let's see. Yes, okay, so notice here that we found our high. It was here about 20 days later, and even actually here, 31 days later, that we found the actual high. I'm going to call this a scam wick. It was the actual high, but I feel like for all intents and purposes, that was kind of like a scam wick. And this is on the TAO B chart. It's not from an exchange. That might not be accurate. That might not be represented on other exchanges. I don't know. That might be just like a scam wick there. So I think this is more appropriate. But 20 to 31 days later, you found your secondary and tertiary highs, okay? After you found that primary high there. Okay. And obviously there was a high here you built from, but in this distribution zone, you can see the distribution lasted about a month. Whenever you found your high here and you got to your actual high point here, it was again about 20 days later, 18 days there. Okay. I'm actually kind of curious. That was 55 days, so that was a bit longer. Here you found a high, and then your actual high was 24 days later. All kind of in that same 20 to 30 day range, right? We get our high here. We're getting overbought. We continue to climb higher. That was about 2 weeks later. But again, not quite as overbought as we've seen now, but still, it took like 2 weeks. Here, we got to this point, and then our higher high came in at about 18 days later. Okay? Right now, from this high to where we are here, it has been about 8 days. It's been about 8 days. Let's wait and see how the coming week and weeks develop, because typically it's around this like 18th to 30th day that we see that higher high come in. And if I'm correct, that should then imply that in the middle of April, not tomorrow, but in the middle of April, if not the end of April, we will see this $400 to $440 zone come into play. And that's all I got to say. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.